Co. And today I'm here with my friend Jason Komosa. You guys want to stick around with this interview. He's an expert at helping you to destroy stress, detach from work, and deepen your relationship with money. And today we're going to be super hyper focusing in on how to start deprogramming the stories that we learned when we were children, specifically around money, and then how to upgrade your mental software. So if you want to know more about that, then just keep listening. Hello, Jason.
Yo.
So Jason and I met through a colleague, and we have
Yeah.
worked together and are working together. But Jason has a
Yeah.
ton of value and a really kind of epic background. So Jason, I would love for you to start by just kind of telling us about your super epic background, and then I'm going to ask you a million questions.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a super epic, quick background story. So I'm a father of two, a husband, and I helped launch a couple of startups in my lifetime. Found myself very burnt out, very stressed out through work and worrying about money. And it was through that pain and discomfort that I evolved to my where I am now, which is helping destroy that stress, destroy the toxic, all the skunk, all the mental stuff that people don't want to have. Really distressing and allowing us to live life. Right, we're here to live, not to work. And so,
Yeah.
my epic background is, again, former burnt out. I was a burnt out guy, burnt out executive. Went through some coaching myself and was so radically transformed by the coaching that I received from my coach. What's up, Michael? That I was like, this is where I need to be. I went through certifications and books and seminars and everything, you name it. And now this is what I do for a living.
Yeah. So I already have like so many questions. One thing I'm curious if you're willing to say at least one of the startups that you work for, because when I say that Jason has an epic background, I mean like an epic background. Can you say the name of any of the startups or?
Well, probably my claim to fame with people who've listened or heard of, like, Groupon was probably the main one. This is way back in 2008. Was an early Groupon guy, and actually before that was an early vitamin water employee. If you folks drink vitamin water, smart water, all that stuff, I was early there before Coca-Cola bought us.
Two brands that probably everybody's heard about. I'm like, when I say epic, I'm talking about like brands that like everybody has heard of. And Jason was not just like the salesperson or a salesperson at those companies, but like training teams and individuals. And
Yeah.
you've been actually coaching and mentoring for many years
Yeah.
longer than
Yeah, I actually helped create the mentoring program at Groupon, where we had the more seasoned senior reps, sales reps would help the younger, newer reps to kind of just get them in the flow of the Groupon world. So yeah, definitely.
That's amazing. That's so cool. So one thing I know about especially coaches and mentors specifically is that a lot of us we coach through like what we had to learn to embody. And so
Yeah.
before really asking you about the solution, like I'm curious, like I know that you had a coach, but what I'm curious about is like what was the wall that you hit? Because we all try to power through. Like
Yeah.
we don't know what the problem is or we would have fixed it already. So
Yep.
what was the wall that you hit where you were like, I can't fucking do this anymore?
Yeah. So I had been a therapist before in the past. I personally didn't find it as impactful as I wanted it to be. And ultimately, Allison, I grew up without a lot of money, a single mom. And so the story I had told myself for so many years, literally decades, 2 decades, was that like, when I get some money, then I'll be happy. And I
Mm,
was fortunate to get some financial stability at a younger age. Again, 29 years old. And I found myself like empty because I had told myself this story of how I'm going to be so happy when I have X amount of, when I have $100,000 and like all these things. And then I got these things and I just kept increasing the dollar amount and like the promotion, the title. I just was left unfulfilled. And that's when I was introduced to to my coach. One of my friends said, "Hey, like you should talk to this, just have a conversation. Like he's a good guy." And that just completely changed my world.
yeah. I think I experienced that too, where I thought the problem was the money, and certainly money was a part of the problem. And then I made the money, and then there were still problems.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, I put so much of my identity into my work and my business. And then when that like wasn't the thing, I was like, what am I doing all this for? Like, what am
For
like
what?
literally, what am I
For
living
what? Yeah. For
Yeah.
what? I felt like I checked all the boxes. Like when I, again, as a child, I was fed, programmed. Here's what you do to be happy. Here's what you do to be successful, which by the way, I don't even know what that means because there's no standard definition of success. But so it's like, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, I did all this. I like, what am I missing here? What's wrong? What's wrong with me? And again, the therapist I've been to was not, just was unimpactful. It was, is that unimpactful, whatever it was. I wanted more. I wanted a game plan. I wanted action. And I got it through my coach. And then I was so radically, again, transformed by his programming and what we worked on. I paid to be his apprentice.
Mm.
He's actually now the co-founder of a coaching program or a coaching platform called Heroic. So it's just, yeah. It's the universe conspired to help me exactly when I needed it.
Yeah. And so then I know like one of the biggest things you help clients with. So, and I find this too, where people, they come to you to untangle one problem, but like obviously we don't know what the problem is. That's why we hire coaches. They don't know what the problem is. That's why people are coming to us for help. So a lot of your clients are like, they're like really successful guys and they're coming to you because they think that like successful.
Yeah.
By the world standard, by some
Yeah,
people's standard.
society.
They
It's a
have a
nice way
love
to
of
say
money.
money,
Or yeah,
money, money.
most of
Yeah,
them, like, they have money, they
some
still need
money.
to
Yeah,
live.
they're not Bill Gates, but they have money. They have some money.
Let me know if you get Bill Gates as your client.
I will.
And then hopefully he'll need some marketing consulting and
Yeah.
I can help him out. So like, but one of your biggest things you help people with is like starting to deprogram the stories we were told as children, because that is the
Yeah.
core of like so much of
Yep.
like so many of our problems come from the messages that we learn that are outside of us. So tell me, like, what does that look like? How do you start to deprogram? Like when you're working with a client who has a money problem, where do you
Mhm.
start?
Yeah, usually I like to go back to the definitions or the stories or beliefs that they inherited as children, right? So we were force fed, whether we like it or not, we were force fed as children. This is how life is, right? Whatever setting or environment, whether it was your parents or your grandparents or whoever, you as a kid were a combination of your environment and the people around you. And so if you, as an adult now, if you're not able to, or if you haven't gone out there to seek the mental upgrading, the mental software that you have, you're running this old, outdated programming on what you received from when you were a kid. So it starts with, again, what are the stories and definitions and beliefs that you're telling yourself?
We are frozen and we will wait for Jason to come back.
Because whatever you tell yourself is going to become that reality.
Jason, can you hear me?
Oh, there you are.
Okay, there we are. We froze. I think we're good now. Okay, so where I lost you was just a few seconds was like where so like you have to start with those messages that as a child you're deprogramming. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, like where would you start with a client? Like tell me an example of like something that you had to deprogram.
Yeah, so I would want to understand, for example, we're talking about money, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of guys, well, again, they're living their life today as an adult man with the inherited beliefs they received as a child. So, for example, investing in yourself. I was never taught to invest in yourself. Many of the guys I work with and gals I work with, they were not taught to invest in themselves. So when you were second grade, third grade, whatever, you were probably taught something about money, and that if you're fortunate enough to have money, this is what you do with it. You put it in the S&P, you put it in the market, you put it in real estate. I was never taught to invest in myself. And really, when you invest in yourself, that is the greatest ROI on earth. There's no other ROI on the planet that gives you a stronger result than investing in yourself, whether that be mental coaching, whether that be going to the gym and getting fit physically. There's a lot of different things when it comes to, again, bettering yourself. I was just never taught it. And so it's almost like, again, rewiring that programming, because when I was approached by my first coach, I was like, there's no way I'm going to pay this money. I need to put it in the stock market and let someone, keep my fingers crossed, and let someone else hopefully make that money go or grow somewhere, grow bigger. It's like, no, I want to take that money and pour it into myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I feel like that's really relevant to like that kind of shows a big difference in like who I work with versus who you work with when I think about like a lot of this like the masculine successful men, they're not thinking about like investing in themselves. And so, or they think that's a waste of money. I guess I do see this because I have a client recently who we were doing some nervous system work, like some somatic work, because we're figuring out she keeps getting into this cycle of creating stress. So then
Yeah.
we're like, what is the need that you're trying to meet with this cycle of stress? So we cycle through all the somatic work, and it turns out like what would help her nervous system is like massage. It's like one thing that helps her to like calm down, but she feels like that's a waste of money. That's not a good use of the money to get a
And that's
massage.
an investment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That would be an investment.
Yeah.
You're speaking, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but like your bed, your mattress, that's an investment. The shoes you wear, that's an investment. We weren't taught these things.
Yeah.
Right. And I, going back to this idea of like the guys who have some money, I firmly believe, and they may not know this, but I think there's, especially for the guys who grew up and gals who grew up poor or didn't have a lot of money, they think oftentimes that they can make enough money or generate enough money to essentially buy out that inner child, that scared version of themselves that's inside of them, that I'm going to make $10 million, 20, whatever it is. Like that version of me is going to go away or be quiet. And that's never going to happen. There's no amount of money in the world that's going to buy out the wounded inner child. You have to invite him or her to the conversation.
That's
right?
like bringing up feelings. There's no amount of money that can buy out the inner child. Like they're still wounded and they're still like,
always,
I need you.
Yeah. And it's your job to give them voice and recognition as opposed to pushing them away or pretending that they don't exist.
And so what does that look like with, like, I know that most of my clients are women, most of your clients are men. Like, what does that look like to help their inner child have a voice? So they're trying to buy this inner child out, but like, how do they realize that like they need to meet their inner child in a different way?
It's from the very first thing I'm thinking about, and I feel in my heart, is that it's like this cycle. They tell themselves the story of like, well, I'm gonna get X, I'm gonna like make X or do X or whatever. It's something extrinsic. There's something that's gonna happen that I'm gonna reach, and then once I reach that thing, things are gonna be great. That's what I've seen. And I don't know if I'm answering your question wholly, but this is just what felt right. It's like it's a cycle. It's like I'm gonna get this next thing or get this next promotion or bonus, and then like, okay. And it's just like a continuous repetitive cycle that never ends because it's never enough. You get that thing. It's like, well, now I want the next thing. I don't know if this is a technical scientific term, but it's like I call it the cookie jar analogy. It's oftentimes more self-pleasing. It feels better to humans to think about eating the cookie than the actual cookie consumption itself. And I think it's the same thing with maybe making money. We think it's going to, this is going to be so great. I'm going to get this money. I'm going to get this promotion. And then we get it. And it's like, we feel let down. We're like unfulfilled. And we told ourselves a story about how great things would be when we get it. And then we get it and we're let down.
Yeah. How do you stop that cycle? It's like, how do you, so they've hit the wall where they realize the cycle. How do you help them upgrade? How do you help them get out of it?
Yeah. It's by first accepting. So a lot of people want to go work towards, let's just, improve. Self-improvement starts with self-acceptance. So a lot of these guys don't even want to accept the fact that this is part of them. So it's almost like you got to chip away. We're chipping away every time I talk with them, every time I do homework, whatever, we're chipping away at this so that they can actually accept where they are now before wanting to move forward. We can't skip that step one. A lot of people go from step 0 to step 2, which is let's get better. I want to get better. I want to improve. There's nothing wrong with that, but we also want to honor what is. We want to honor and accept where we are right now without judgment or without negativity, because especially as adults, it's so easy to beat ourselves up and just berate ourselves when really we need to parent ourselves as we would our own child, or if you're not a child person, if you have a pet, like you need to show up for the love that you would give to them, give it to yourself.
Yeah, that is so it's so hard and painful too. Like it sounds so simple, but if it were easy, everybody would do it to just accept where we are right now. And I'm creating this course called The Holistic Art of Attraction, which is all about like manifesting, but I think that what you're describing is like one of the key sticking points where because we're always focused on moving we're always focused on a goal. And then that goalpost moves. And so we're in this trap of never being satisfied, and so we're in this trap of never having what we want. Whereas, like, if you can just be grateful for what's here now, you allow what you want to come. It's
Yep. And
like,
you're totally okay with where you are now.
yeah,
You don't need anything, right?
yeah,
If something comes our way, it's like, oh, this is great. I love it. But you're not like, oh, I need this money. I need this promotion. I need this or that. And this is actually a scientific term. It's called destination addiction, where people are
mm,
constantly thinking happiness is in the future. It's elsewhere. Wherever I am right now, it's not happiness. I'm going to get happiness somewhere else. And that's a term called, again, destination addiction, where you're just never there. You're never there.
yeah. Oh man. So what do you do? Because it can be so painful to accept where we are right now, especially if you hate where you are right now. So
Yeah.
what I think of is like, you know, someone who's got money in the bank is going to feel a little bit less anxiety than someone who is like in multiple 5 figures of debt
Mm-hmm.
or 6 figures of debt in some cases. I had a
Mm-hmm.
former client who had almost $1,000,000 of debt when we started. Now she's debt free. But like, how do you help someone to be grateful right now when they don't like the situation that they're in right now?
Yeah. I give them what I like to call sacred bitching, or I learned that from my coach, which is essentially you're letting someone, so like that client, I would say you need to give me 5 minutes of your bitching, which is essentially it's not your deepest truth. It's not like your core values. This is just how I'm feeling. And I'm gonna displace it. I'm gonna get it out of my system. Right. Much like if you drink a ton of water, you got to go to the bathroom. You have to get
Yeah.
it out of your system. Let them talk, let them get it out of their system, because whether it's speaking, whether it's journaling, like whether it's whatever it is, you have to get it, you have to let it go somewhere. And a lot of, especially men, right, they just keep it inside them because they don't want to be perceived as weak. So they just let it, keep it inside of them. It corrodes, it compounds, and then they're walking around with these, it's like a bag of invisible kettlebells. It's like weighing them down.
Yeah. How have you seen like when somebody is able to go from constantly chasing to being grateful for right now, what do you see happens with their goals and their vision for their life?
It's, if you were to ask some of the folks, I'm just smiling because like some of these people I work with where they don't believe what's happening, like they like literally don't believe what's happening based upon the work that they've done on themselves. They can't fathom like, well, how do my, one of my clients just got one of her, like she called it a dream job. I helped her get a dream job. She was unemployed. She was not happy. We kind of came up with these cool, unique ideas to help find a career or a position that feels right for her, and she's just baffled. And I don't even remember what you're, sorry, I'm still soaking up that goodness from her. She just started last week or 2 weeks ago. But it's just like she's like, how did I, it's like mind blowing. It's almost like tasting the color blue. I use that analogy a lot. It's like,
Mhm.
what does the color blue taste like? How do you describe that?
Yeah, that's such a great analogy. The question was like, what changes do you find and what people want when they are become happy with what they are right now? And I think tasting the color blue is exactly what it is because it's like, do you find it like I don't know if this question matters because like so the question I was going to ask is like, do you find it's easier for people to reach their goals or like their more important goals after they find satisfaction in how their life is right now?
I like to think of goals as a means to systems, because for me personally
Mm,
and how I coach, a goal is great to have. I want to lose 10 pounds, right? That's awesome. But when you hit that goal of losing 10 pounds, then what? You're like, well, I have to create some sort of new goal, or I have to like, it's like this. If you put a system in place that says, look, I'm going to spend 30 minutes, 4 days a week working out, and that's that, without like a hard this is, again, nothing wrong with having the hard goal, but like if you just put in a system and run the system via algorithms, right? Do the stuff whether you feel like it or not. The systems is what's going to get you to where you want to go. The
Yeah.
system is what's going to continue to fuel you, because many times human beings allow their feelings to be in the driver's seat. And oftentimes it doesn't serve our highest purpose, right? I don't feel like going to the gym, or I don't feel like doing the dishes, or I don't feel like, all these things. Like, it doesn't really matter what you feel, because it has to get done, right? The dirty dishes are in the sink regardless of how you feel. So you could either complain about them and expend energy and again, whine, or you could just say, hey, there are dishes in the sink. I got to do them. Let's get them done.
Mm-hmm.
The reality doesn't care about how you feel in that
Yeah.
situation.
And another good reminder in everything you're saying in the systems, it's like, it's not about the goal, it's about the system. It's like, it's not about the goal, it's about the journey. It's about like the personal development. It's about making meaning with your life. And the goal becomes arbitrary because
Yeah.
you just elevate and then, yeah, the goal doesn't even matter anymore. It's just about
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
for people who are like, feel like we're speaking another language to them, how would they start with like starting to deprogram? Because I agree with you, like most of the mental mindset problems we have today are childhood or past life. You didn't say
Yeah.
past life, but childhood, past life, deprogramming basically. How does somebody get started?
I would go back to the idea of go back go back in time, and like just kind of, I like journaling, right? Write that, like, what are the things that I may and have inherited that aren't serving my highest purpose? And I'll give you an example. This isn't from, I have not incurred this, but like if you grew up in the deep South, let's just say, and you're like racist, really racist, right? Your family's racist, your town's racist, like everyone's racist. Odds are you probably would be a racist, not because by choice, but that's just your environment. And so it's your responsibility to go out there and again seek like the other, like what are some other alternative information that I may not have inherited as a kid. So again, it's not your fault as a kid, but as an adult, it is your responsibility.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, that's a good analogy, probably for a topic for another day too.
Yeah.
Invite
Yep.
another guest to talk about that. But yeah,
Yeah.
like that's a great example of like something where as a child you were taught a thing. It's not your fault that you were taught that thing, but as an adult it's your responsibility to take to take responsibility and change that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And too many people, what I see often, guys more than women, they won't do it. They won't upgrade their mental software. They are running their mindset on this Windows 95 CD-ROM. It's like, you got to go out there and no one's going to do it for you. This isn't school. You have to go out there and seek it.
Yeah. It's hard. It's like I mean I see this with women too where I think a lot of people just don't know, or it's way too easy to say I am this way because X Y and Z. My life is this way because X Y and Z. And I think it's important to also say like we don't control every single thing that happens in our life. Like I do believe we manifest our reality, and I also think that the world is unfair and we can't control every single person. We can just control how we respond, and that's harder for some people than others. But it is so easy to say like my situation is this way because of this, instead of
Mm-hmm.
saying with everything I have the opportunity to make a change, even if that change takes, some will take longer than others. Like we're changing our whole reality. Like you're not going to be able to go from homeless to buying a house in one day, except for a miracle. But how can people, so what are you focused on now, Jason, and how can people connect with you?
So connecting with me, easiest way is on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. It's Jason Komosa. You can look me up. I'm friends with Allie. Yeah, when it comes to my work, I do group workshops. Most of my work is 6-month programs. So I do one-on-one coaching on average 6 to 12 months. But again, I'm here to support the community, the people who are like, man, I really want and need this. I want to get better, right? There's nothing wrong with these people. There's nothing that needs fixing. It's all about, hey, I want to get better. I want to get better for myself and for my family and so on. So yeah, that's what I'm up to.
Yeah. It's like, I know there's something different than what I've been doing. I've been doing the
Yeah.
same thing for a long time. It's not working.
Yeah.
I've got $3 million net worth and I'm still not where I want to be. Like what is the problem? And this
Hmm.
is the problem.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. You guys go follow Jason. And Jason, I'll see you around on the internet.
Thank you, Allie.